Oh, and then one more thing, little thing here, right? So, when you're doing this, right? You have this, right? It's kinda, the fuck? Aw. It's like, I avoided my E. What the fuck? You see? The fuck? This is like actually avoided my E right there. But, anyways, so when you're doing variables, right? So you have if statements, right? Right here we do an if statement. We just check if the search result was equal to true, then we return. This is another thing that you can do. For example, if you ever seen player service. Actually, I probably would go to another script just to show you this. So, if you've ever seen player service, and then you would have actual variable. So player service, and then sometimes you see the player like this, right? And then you will see the character done like this sometimes. So you'll see player.character, right? So this is a property of the player, like actual object. It has a property named character, right? You can search this up by going to, I don't even know where it is anymore. It's like browser. So yeah, it'd be like this. So you go through this, and you go to the. This is actually very good, by the way. This is like a internal thing that you can just look at, and so you can look at a bunch of different methods and properties. So if you look at this is a property of the player object, which just says member of player. Okay, controlled by the player, that contains a humanoid body part script and other objects. So sometimes you'll see people do that, and then they'll do this. So basically what this means is that the character is equal to the property, but if it's nil, right, if it doesn't have a value, right, so because the player spawns in first, right, the player object, exists, and then the character is loading in, sometimes the character doesn't load in, and actually most of the time it is like that, where the character doesn't load in, and so you need to actually have another way of fixing that, and the way you do that is you do this OR statement. This OR basically means that if the first value is nil, or like the values behind the OR, right, so you can actually stack up a billion different things. So you could say if player.character or player find first child of class model, it doesn't work. If this is nil, then we're gonna go to the next thing past the OR, right? That's basically all OR means, and so you would see player.character added wait. This is just an event that waits for the player to be added, right? And it will return it, right? So this variable actually becomes equal to whatever this returns. That's why you see that. But to have the same logic here, what you can do is you can do core functions. We already know that this function right here is going to return either true or false, right? So it's either going to find the setting or it's not going to find the setting. Those are the two definite possibilities. And so you can do return. So this is going to return true or false, right? Just remove everything else. So this is going to return true or false, right? But the thing is, we're trying to return client or true, right? So what you can do is, if this returns true, right? If this returns true, you can do another form of the OR thing, which is like condition based. So for example, if I have a variable and I say x is equal to 3, and I say y is equal to x equal to 3 and 2, or actually I'll say yes, no. So basically what this means is that it's the same thing as this. So if x is equal to 3, then y is equal to yes. Otherwise, y is equal to no, right? So this is called the ternary statement, which is basically just meaning that it's a variable with a condition inside of it. So this basically means that the value of y is equal to an if statement, and this is shorthand for like true, right? So this says if x is equal to true, like if x is equal to 3, what happens if it's true is the value of y becomes yes, and otherwise, if this if statement just doesn't work, it's equal to no, right? So the way you take that is if this is equal to client, if this function returns true, because that's technically a condition, right? It's technically an if statement. You can put this and right here, right? And then you can also then return, you can say or server, basically meaning if this function returns true, this is an if statement technically, so we can put and so, and if that works, right? If that works, we're gonna have this be equal to client. Otherwise, if it doesn't return the client as a setting, like if this client setting just isn't there, it means that it's a server input. So that's one way you can use, like one way you can use to, something you can use to make your code a little bit more nicer, right? Secondly, right, server inputs, right? So you talked about, wait, let's see, I have a evil little error right here. Okay, so that's why. But you talked about how you wanted server inputs to like be let you have the fist weapon automatically, but then other weapons maybe not so much, right? So imagine we have a little starter place, right? And so we have these different things. I'm not going to go into data right now. You can kind of do your own data. It's not too hard. You can look up tutorials or whatever. If you really need it, I'll show you. But like, I'm just gonna make something simple, which is just this is going to be a surface GUI with a text label in there, and this is going to be 1 stud tall 0.5. Also, by the way, if you ever do properties, something shorthand to fill every single like thing with something. So when you're editing the position, right, it has like 4 different axes kind of, or 2 different axes, but then 2 different properties under those. And so if you put like, if you want to edit the scale, which is like how much of the parent like size. So imagine we want this to fill all of it, right? We want it to fill all of it. We can just put we could put 1, and this would be like, this would just set scale on both axes to 1. If you put 0.5, it's going to set scale on both axes to 0.5. It's shorthand for doing things nicely. Also position 0.5 is in the middle, and then you put the anchor point at 0.5 as well. That's also in the middle. Yeah, but anyways, say this. Imagine I just say fist, right? And this one right here is going to be, or we're not going to do fist. I don't think we'll do fist. I think we'll do sword, right? So we'll have sword, and then that'll be it, right? So you can optionally add this. This is going to be a, here's what I do for my game. Obviously this is not a good way to do things, because at the end of the day you're not gonna have this block in a CC game to equip a sword. Maybe it would be kind of stupid. I mean, you could do that, but who knows, right? So you can set up however you want to like give these, basically your goal is to give the keybinds to the player whenever they click the block, and then send it to their client later on. And so the way I'm just going to do it is I'm just going to say tribute set name, and the tribute arsenal name is equal to some kind of keybinds, and then basically whenever they click this click detector, we're gonna basically make it so that if we put this in a folder and we just say like activators, I'll just call them activators for my game, different like things that you can click activators. I mean, it's also like rogue terminology. Oh shit! Oh fuck! Yeah, I see him. Don't worry. This is like exploration, right? Why do you look like this? Right, but anyways, I didn't see there was a little Marty in here, but anyways, wait. Can you not touch script for a sec? I do one more tutorial. And then, wait, here, let me send you this other one. The fuck? It failed. Somehow one of the videos failed. What? Okay, I'm just gonna re-upload it. Hold on. Give me a sec. I'm like doing this live, okay? Good. So, I'm just gonna upload the video real quick and then I'll send videos soon. And I make a 5th one for the keybind stuff you want to know. So, this has apparently 6 months left. So, basically, you have this activator, right? And you can do this any way you want, literally any way you want. But I'm gonna do it this way. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it like this. Another thing for, you don't have to do this, but something that makes this a little bit nicer later on is if you make it so that whenever they have keybinds or whenever they add new keybinds into their player, their user keybinds thing on the server, they get like an index inside of an index for their player that puts keybinds in there. So of course on the client they're gonna have keybinds, whatever, right? But on the server you might want to check if they actually have those keybinds to be able to like do the moves or whatever. Because what if they just put a client keybind in there, the server just takes that as like final, like okay, you want a greatsword input, you want to do a greatsword M1, okay, that's gonna work because you sent it into the server. Obviously, I mean, if you look at it right here, right, it just takes whatever the client sends in willingly without like any checking, which is fine, but like, you know, it kind of aids, right? So something you can do later on is you can add the inputs or whatever keybinds you add to the player into the user keybinds module. You don't want to put it in the keybinds module because the keybinds module is for reference of like every other keybind, you know. You use that as a reference, not as like editing, you know. So basically what you want to do here now is that you're probably going to want to edit their keybinds and everything like that. So you're going to want to get replicate storage, you're going to want to also get the modules variable, because you also want to get the modules inside shared, and so the way you do this is this, and then look at the module. Okay, so we can get the keybinds because that's the most important part. You can do verification later where you add it into their own keybinds. I might as well just require it here for you to do later if you actually want to do that. It is a little tiny bit of work every single time you update the data. You have to change the server keybinds as well as the client ones, but basically you want to make it so that whenever they you're gonna loop through every single activator inside of that activator folder. We made it inside of the workspace, so you're gonna loop through every single one of them, and then you're gonna check their attributes, right? Because they're gonna have arsenal name and set names, right? For their attributes. Also, another thing, you want to make sure you set up an event for each one. So if you do activator, click detector, mouse click, connect function, So because every single one of these activators are going to have a click detector inside of them, you're going to set up an event for every single click detector that's going to say add whatever set name or whatever arsenal name they have as their attributes into their data, right? Into the keybinds. It's like how you could do giving keybinds to the players. So basically the way you would do that is once they click it, you're gonna get the arsenal name, which is gonna be the activator, because the activator, remember, we're just doing the activators folder, get children, so that's gonna be every single one of these blocks that are inside of here. They're all gonna have attributes, so the activator itself is gonna be the thing with the attribute, you know what I mean? And so you do this for set name as well, and then after you do this for set name, you're going to want to add this actually into their data on the client. The way you're going to do this is you're going to take one of these remotes, and remember the last thing where a player would join, and when they would join, it would add every single keybind into their table. We can change this a little bit, so we can say maybe keybinds is equal to an empty table, right? And we're gonna loop through every single player payload. We're just gonna call this payload because this is gonna be like every single keybind that we're sending to the player. We don't want to just get them every keybind if they have like a sword or anything like that, so we're gonna want to loop through every single keybind in the keybinds thing, right? And inside of that you have set name, set data, arsenal data, right? Arsenal data is a table, right? So you're gonna want to check. So the easiest way I think you would want to do this is you're gonna want to have like certain different sets and arsenals that are like given to you by default, right? So you could do in your setup module, right? This is the magic of it, you know what I mean? You could have that weapons doesn't have a setting like that automatically gives you it to you, like every single setting set in there. Instead, maybe only specific sets will give you themselves by default. So you could say default is equal to true. You don't have to call it default, you could call it whatever you want. And so we could check if remember we have to get the core functions because that's what has our get setting function, right? So it's very useful like to actually use core functions or anything like that. That's the whole reason why I made one for my game. So kind of just filling in the blanks right here. And modules, find first child, functions. Okay, so we required it. Now we have it, and we're gonna get the setting. We're gonna send in both set names and arsenal, and we want to check if they're a default arsenal, right? And if they are, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say. So also a design pattern, something people use often. I don't remember the name of it, but it's something that's very helpful to get rid of like indents and like, you know, here. So here we have 4 indents, right? That's okay. It doesn't, I mean 3 indents. It doesn't look terrible, but it kind of looks weird. So you can reverse the condition. So you can say, if not this condition, right? If it's not, we're just going to continue on. Continue on means continue with the loop, meaning skip whatever code is next in the loop under this, right? Under this if statement. And if it does pass the condition, that means it's the same thing as what we had earlier, which is if it's a default set, because this is the reverse condition, right? It only will go inside this if statement and work if it's the reverse of the condition. So that means anything that's the actual original condition works, right? And so when it does, right, what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to add this. We don't want to send individually every single thing that you're going to give them, every single set and arsenal to them at once. Just because if you do that, you're going to have a lot of data receiving. It's going to be kind of unoptimized. So you have to kind of think about it. We're already sending it once, right? Why can't we just add everything to a table and then send that whole table at once, right? And so the way you would do that is you would just do table.insert. I would say probably, okay, so this is how you would do it. So you would say payload arsenal name is equal to an empty table, or you also want to do this. You want to make sure you do this because so the reason why you're doing payload is equal to arsenal name, payload is equal to itself or table, is remember how this is a condition, right? You're checking if this condition exists, right? And if it does, right? If it does, it's itself, right? It just works. Otherwise, it's going to be the second value, right? This is the same thing you saw with player.character. This means that what if there's already maybe let's say for some reason we wanted to like already have some arsenals in here, so we had like we already had an arsenal in here by the name techniques. This would just completely override it, and even more so if this had data inside of it. So if this had like freshy as like a set, as like a technique, and they had a bunch of different like inputs and whatever. I don't know why you would ever do this, because that's the whole purpose of doing this right here. But if they already had stuff to begin with, right? Because later on you're going to do data stuff, right? We don't want to, like if you already had stuff in this empty payload table, you don't want to override those arsenals. So if I just did empty table, if payload arsenal name is equal to empty table, if we're looping through currently the techniques arsenal, it would mean we're making an empty table for techniques, yes, but because we're making an empty table, it's just going to literally delete everything inside of it. Bad, okay? Also, another thing is, the most important reason why you would do this is because we're not just having one set, right? So this would loop through multiple times. So imagine there was two curse techniques, like Freshy and like Boomerang, okay? This would loop through once and then twice, right? And so the first time it would be okay because there would be nothing in there, but then it would make some kind of room in there for the Freshy curse technique. But then the second time looping around, it's going to get rid of it and reset the arsenal name index. It's going to reset it to an empty table. That's going to be bad. You don't want that. And so you have to kind of also do the same thing for everything under it. So you gotta do it a lot. So if you don't understand it, it's a little confusing, but it's nice. It's nice. It works. It's cool. Cool. You know. Yeah. And also, remember we're sending in every single bit of information of the keybinds to the client. So we're not just sending in like the move names that they own. We're sending in also the move data inside of there. So we also want to do payload arsenal name, set name, action name, right? We also want to do so one thing you can do, by the way, is you can ignore the condition for the like actual move, because I mean, like, if every single move had this, I don't know how to explain it, but if every single move had this condition, like, doesn't really work too well, right? If every single move, like if this went right here, and it said if this not condition, then continue on with the next loop, whatever, right? Don't add it to the payload table. This happens for every single set, right? So it's like a common thing in every single in this loop. It's going to be a common thing, so you could just move it outside. Okay, all right, understand. So afterwards you want to add in, basically this just says if this is a default input, we're going to add in the payload table for every single move. We're going to add in all the different actions that they own, like all the different actions under each set in every single. We're basically saying under each set, if it's a under each set or under each arsenal, if it's a thing you get by default, and also probably you want to these ones as well. You probably want to see this is the beauty of using this this setup thing. It's because you can do stuff like this, where you just add it to the whole set. So I want to, or arsenal. So I wanted to make this arsenal probably given to you by default. Maybe open your inventory. Maybe you should get that by default. Maybe you should only apply to the client thing, but I just added it to basically everything. Every arsenal you can change that out, whatever. So once you get your payload, once you fill it up with every single key you want, every single arsenal, every single set name and action name that you want, and action data, because that was the whole point of this. We're just adding in, we're just basically filtering in the keybinds table that before we were just sending in the whole keybinds, right? But now we're just filtering it basically only for keybinds that are default, that are given to you by default, right? So we want to say add. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying add is because what if you add multiple things to the keybinds, and later on you're gonna be pressing this button, right? You don't want to just reset every single time you change a keybind or anything, or you add new keybinds. You don't want to just reset them, right? So you're gonna want to instead add them. So I mean, for this function, like nothing. This happens when the player joins, right? So you could just say like fill, right? You could say fill. This is gonna be like the method. Here, I'll put it in the code, right? So here, right? We could say method is equal to this, or it's equal to a string. We could say the specific string literal, so we could say if it's update, or we could say fill, add, or remove. Remove would probably be later, but so if method is equal to fill, then that just means their entire keybinds is going to be equal to everything in the keybinds is going to be equal to whatever is sent in, right? But if we're adding in new keybinds, we're not just going to do that. We basically want instead what we want is we want to just add them in one by one, right? We want to add on top of the current keybinds, the current existing keybinds. So we're going to do this add method, which also allows us to, again, not like just replace everything. So we're going to say for IV in I'm going to say maybe table that inserts, or maybe I'll do for IV in keybinds. Oh wait, I'm just retarded. For IV in keybinds, so for every single keybind that's sent in, every single, because this stands for arsenal name, this stands for arsenal data, we're instead gonna set Actually, I guess you could do this. You could just use fill for everything, because um, this is arsenal name, and this is the I is arsenal name. This is arsenal data. But inside this, we're basically just saying that the index is equal to itself, or equal to the arsenal data. Like, we're just copying the table for everything in there. But we're not resetting the table. Like, if we were, for example, doing for IV in keybinds, or in user keybinds, to user keybinds I is equal to nil, right? That could be fill. That could, yeah, let's just make that our fill function. And then the reason why we have this is because, I mean, this is only looping through the existing keybinds in the things that are sent, right? So, I mean, like, if we don't send anything, like, it's not gonna touch our current keybinds in the table, right? It's just adding in new keybinds. It's just changing the index of the arsenal name and the things that are sent in to the arsenal data that's sent in. And so basically, you know, like,